Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you my review of the Canon EOS R5C that came out recently. Now, the original Canon EOS R5 is, I would say, probably my favorite Canon camera to date. And I like pretty much most things about it. I won't say everything about it, but most things about it. But at the time when it was released, there was a lot of controversy that was focused on, particularly on YouTube, where controversy tends to abound. Featuring in on the fact that there was some overheating issues when it came to shooting at some of the higher end codecs that it could record at, up to including 8K 30 or 4K at 120 frames per second. And so the issues that came down through that were well documented, and of course Canon has worked hard since that point to try to address some of those things, and there's been lots of ink spilled over workarounds to try to get better performance out of it. Canon has addressed that, however, by basically giving us a hybrid between the Canon EOS R5 and the EOS C70 cinema camera into the new EOS R5C. Now, my review today is going to be a quicker review for a couple of reasons. First of all, I have thoroughly reviewed the EOS R5, compared it to other cameras in different ways, and so if you want more follow-up on that, then you can check out my coverage of the Canon EOS R5. But the second reason why I'm not going to dive as deeply here is that I am a photography guy first and foremost, and for me, video is a very distant second. And certainly I don't consider myself a cinematographer at all. I use video as a medium, obviously for conveying information, and I'll use it sometimes to mild cinematic effect, but for the most part, I'm not doing any kind of heavy grading, and I'm not looking for any kind of serious editing footage. I'm not heavily invested in that. So if you want a much better, deeper dive look at the various codecs and video side of this camera, I recommend that you check out Gerald Undun's review, which I will link to here. But this is a true hybrid camera, in that while hybrid is all the rage, and that most cameras these days attempt to have, if not fully equal, balance between video and photography or stills, there is at least some nod in basically all cameras to both aspects of that. But the EOS R5C is a true hybrid camera in that you literally, if you use the dial selector and you go in one direction towards video, you have a completely different menu setup that is what's found on Canon's Cine lineup as far as the menu system there. And the only negative that I will say about that is that it's a little bit too small for touch. But if you go in the other direction and you go towards photo on the power on, you immediately go not only into a full other set of controls, basically the Canon EOS R5 minus one feature, which I'll get to in just a moment. But you go fully into the stills, the typical stills menu system as well. And so you have two completely different menu systems that are different in their visual setup, different in their size, and obviously different in what the options are available there. So this really is a hybrid camera in a way that few cameras actually are, and that it is a truly hybrid in terms of having both cameras basically available, but in one body that really is not all that much bigger than what the R5. It obviously is deeper, which we'll get to the reason for that in just a moment. The one thing feature that I will say is lost relative to the R5 is the in-body image stabilization. So while there is a digital IS here, there is no actual optical stabilization that is going to be found in the EOS R5. But the big thing that is gained here addresses what was the fundamental issue with the R5 on the video front, and that was the overheating issues. And that is solved by incorporating in an active fan into this. And so the body is deeper throughout this section to incorporate that fan. And when you power up the camera in the video side and you're holding the grip as you typically do, you can actually feel the air moving against your hand because it is actively moving air throughout the body. And as a byproduct of that, it solves literally all of the overheating issues that were found in the R5. And so it enables you to not only have full access to all of the video functionality that was found at the R5, but even to higher levels. And so now, rather than an upper limit of 8K 30, you can go all the way up to 8K 60, but forget just a few minutes of record time before you start to hit, issues with heat. Now you can go pretty much continuously with that without any kind of overheating issues, 4K 120. The same is true. And of course, it also enables there to be higher bitrate codecs. And now you have a full cine lineup of options and codecs, not only at the bit rates that I've mentioned, but up to and including internal 12-bit cinema raw, light footage, and a whole variety of other codecs. You have much more options when it comes to what kind of wrapper your video content's going to be in, your frame rate, your bit rate, all of those various things are all addressed in this and a full cine lineup. And on top of that, you also have a lot more of the cine options when it comes to monitoring, be it on-screen aids, be it waveforms, all of those type things. And so just a lot more options on the video front. And frankly, for myself, someone like me, a lot that's somewhat wasted on me because, as I said, I am not really a cinematographer. I will note also that it does play very nicely with my Ninja 5, and so it is nice for that, and everything syncs up very nicely. It has more assignable buttons than what did the EOS R5. Some of those buttons tend to be a little bit on the small side, but there are buttons everywhere that you can program to functionality, and there is an additional port which allows you to do your time code and to have a separate port for running that in. So let's talk about what's not so great about this camera. The biggest thing that you're probably going to hear the most about, because it is the biggest, probably real issue, and that is that there is no upgrade when it comes to the battery. Now, it's great, obviously, that you're able to pull that air through with that fan and that you have more robust codecs and bit rates available to you, but all of that is power hungry. And as a byproduct here, what you end up with is that with the standard battery, that's the same battery we've been seeing in these, I believe it's the LPE6N, that is the current battery model, it's going to be depleted in basically any kind of video format in about an hour, and if you're in the more demanding settings, you may see as little as a half hour before the battery is depleted, which makes it for a lot of different applications fairly unusable. For example, you probably couldn't shoot a full wedding, maybe not even a full wedding ceremony on one battery if you are a wedding cinematographer, for example. So the best workaround seems to be to use a power bank with the PD standard, and so if you do that through the USB-C port, you can do that. You can do V-mount batteries, various other things. But let's just put it this way: your power solution is not going to be on this chassis here. It's very likely going to need to be somewhere else. And so just so you know, that is going to be the biggest kind of physical limitation here. The second limitation, which I was frankly very shocked at as I began to explore underneath the port covers, which, by the way, these port covers are kind of flimsy, and so not really great there. And that is that, but that limitation that I discovered is you've got a micro HDMI out, which seems really, really odd for such a cinema-oriented camera. When so many cameras, have up to and including a full-size HDMI port, and a lot of people have noted, for those that are doing serious, outputting to external sources, it's just it's a fairly flimsy port. To be sending that video signal out, even though it can send great HDMI, very great clean over HDMI, the fact that it's doing it over such a small port is obviously not great. Now, the third issue that I'll highlight here is someone that's specific to someone more like myself, and that it's not someone that has a full editing suite and high-end software doing a lot of grading and video edits already. And that is that I found that out of the camera, I had a lot of issues with actually editing a lot of the software, even getting it to playback in a Windows environment, but then even to get it into my editing software. And so that even includes DaVinci Resolve if you're not using like the actual fully paid professional version of it. You may have issues even in opening that, though people that are set up for doing edits like that, that's going to be a non-issue for them. I reached out to him personally. He had zero issue in terms of editing, but although he edits in Resolve, he has the pro-grade version of it, and so he had no issues in doing edits there. Like I said, if you're someone from me, that maybe you're starting out with it, your investment may have to include upgrading your editing software. And of course, if you're going to do edits in 8K and you're not set up for that, you may also need to be doing some upgrading of your system. That's not really a Canon problem on that front. That's more just a reality of editing higher end, higher bit rate footage out of a camera like this. At the end of the day, in my conclusion, and I'm not going to try to dive too much deeper into this because I found that the camera worked really well for, capturing video, and if you're using a lens that has, in-body or lens stabilization, that helps a lot. And of course, you do have the digital IS. But in terms of the actual process of using the camera, it's quick, it was intuitive. Autofocus worked very much like what I'm familiar with already from the EOS R5, which is to say quite good. And so, the actual process of using the camera, it has the articulating LCD screen, which I really enjoy. Canon's touchscreens, they're very responsive. All of those things are familiar and things that I like. But when it came to the actual editing of the footage, it's more camera than what I need, and that may be the case for you, and it may not be. You're going to have to determine that for yourself. One thing I can say though is that this is clearly a very strong value. This is, as I said, probably one of the best fully hybrid cameras out there. And if you're looking for a one-stop solution for truly getting full video and then full photography, the R5 is already a great stills camera, and now the R5C is both a great stills and also a great video camera. And on the still side, you still have that amazing 45 megapixel sensor, amazing autofocus, just a great camera in general to use, but you're adding on all of that video feature with basically the only downside is a little bit more price, which I'll conclude on in just a moment, and a little bit more bulk in the body, but it's still not a hard body at all to bring along. And that price point of right under $4,800 US is, I think, a really strong value, considering that this camera has pretty much everything in it. And so it's cheaper than the C70, for example, by about $700 US, and of course, it's a much cheaper option than a camera like the Sony Alpha 1 that I typically use, in that it's nearly $2,000 cheaper than that model, despite, I would say, rivaling it on a lot of levels, and even surpassing it when it comes to some of the video codecs and the video side of things. So at the end of the day, I think that for the target audience, this is an amazing camera. I just don't happen to be the target audience, and I'm not going to pretend that I am. But hopefully this has helped you to get a sense of a basic overview of the camera itself, and if you want to dive deeper, check out Gerald's review there as well. I'm Dustin Abbott, and if you look in the description down below, you can find a linkage there which will give you some buying links if you'd like to purchase one of these for yourself. Also, linkage to follow myself or Craig on social media, become a patron, check out our new channel, Letthelightin TV. And of course, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and let the light in.